Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. And this is the regular City Council meeting. I now call to order. I'm Mayor Shelby Ronstadt, presiding in Council Chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street in Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, Council members Shannon Williamson, Deb Rule, Joel Aspiro, Kate McAllister, and Andy Grote are present. Council members Aspiro, McAllister, and Grote are participating here in Council Chambers. Council members Williamson and Rule are participating remotely. Councilman Darling is absent this evening. We'll now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any announcements from council? No? Well, staff?
No announcements tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I would like to read a proclamation proclaiming September 17th through 23rd, 2020 as Constitution Week. Whereas September 17, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. Whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Whereas public policies that support early learning for all young children are crucial to young children's futures and to the prosperity of our society. Now, therefore, I, Shelby Ronstadt, Mayor of the City of Sandpoint, Idaho, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Proclaimed this 16th day of September 2020 in the city of Sandpoint, Bonner County, Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Could I say one thing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, please, let's step up to the podium.
Hello, I'm a member of Daughters of the American Revolution, and in conjunction with Constitution Week, we are sponsoring a Let Freedom Ring here in Sandpoint. Essentially, all across the United States, at a specified time, between 1:30 and 2:30, bells will be rung in celebration of the proclamations that we have, and of course of the signing of the Constitution. So you are all invited, and it will be out at the commission, the Bonner County Commission offices, and there'll be refreshments out there and all of that, and we would love it if you could join us. So thank you very much, and I...
Thank you for that. We'll now proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting, which gives the public the opportunity to address council regarding items listed on the consent calendar or any topic not listed on tonight's agenda. To accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you would like to speak and did not have an opportunity to do so, we will give everyone an opportunity to speak by reopening the public forum at the end of our regular agenda. Those participating in this meeting will refrain from disruptive behavior, such as loud noises, clapping, shouting, or engaging in any other activity in a manner that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of this meeting. Comments shall not be personally derogatory, nor shall they be personally directed at any individual, organization, or business. Do not direct any questions to the mayor, city council, or city staff during your comments. And do not address the audience, please. In the interest of time, please do not repeat prior comments, but simply state your support of those comments. Public participation is and will remain at the discretion of the mayor. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. Please keep an eye on our timer stoplight. It will turn green when you have 1 minute left. It will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds left, and it will turn red when your 3 minutes are up. We will be taking comments from City of Sandpoint residents first, both those participating here in chambers and those attending by Zoom. Then we will hear from those who reside outside of our city limits. For those participating here in chambers, when your name is called, you will step up to the podium to speak. On Zoom, please note that you will need a working microphone on your phone or computer in order to participate. When your name is called, you will see a prompt on your screen to unmute. You will need to press or click the unmute button in order to be heard. We will now begin with the first 20 minutes of the public forum. And clerk, the first speaker this evening.
Mr. Mayor, we have some folks signed up to speak during the public hearing and during the proposed adoption of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I do not have anyone signed up currently to speak during public forum, but I would like to ask those participating on Zoom if anyone there would like to speak during the general public forum to please raise your hand. We have no one who wishes to speak during public forum, Mr. Mayor.
Actually, it looks like Mr. Davis would like to speak during the public forum. Is that right, Mr. Davis, on a topic not on the agenda?
That's correct, unless you had another time slotted for me.
He's speaking under the swap.
Okay. That concludes the public forum for this evening. Next, we have the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $1,057,599.25, reflecting $423,831.28 for regular payables and $633,767.97 for payroll. Are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the consent calendar be approved.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman McAllister?
Yes.
Councilman Espero?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule?
Yes.
Councilman Grote?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And the consent calendar is approved. The first item under old business this evening is a public hearing and subsequent decision on a proposed real property exchange at First Avenue and Bridge Street. On August 26, 2020, upon approval of Resolution 20037, Declaration of Value of Property, City Council declared their intent to exchange city-owned real property at First Avenue and Bridge Street for additional right-of-way on Bridge Street, as well as other consideration, and scheduled a public hearing to take public testimony on this matter. The notice of public hearing was published in the Bonner County Daily Bee on September 1st, 2020. The issue before the City Council this evening is whether to approve the land exchange between the city and Bridge Street LLC. City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton will provide a brief presentation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The properties that we are talking about as part of this swap, both city property as well as currently owned private property, are located as depicted on this image at the location of Bridge Street and North First Avenue in downtown Sandpoint. The property with the round, the circle, blue circle, is two parcels that the public and council will recall were lost to a fire in February of 2019. Previously, there were two buildings on these two parcels, and the parcels were owned by two separate property owners. And subsequent to the fire, demolition of the buildings in the fall of 2019, these properties were sold and acquired by a single development firm, Bridge Street LLC. The city currently owns property at this location as depicted on the east side of the private property with the blue diamond. Our parcel is approximately 0.31 acres. About 50% of the property is actually underwater in Sand Creek. It is the location of our public boardwalk, and the other amenities on our particular property are pretty much a non-maintained vegetated hillside that goes down to the waterfront that is just east to the public ramp that goes between Bridge Street down to the parking area down below and to the property that the city owns to the north that is, we termed as Farman's Landing. The city acquired that parcel back in January of 2016 for the purpose of stormwater management and creating a new water facing and towards the byway for our downtown. It was identified as an area in our downtown design guide. And this again was also identified as a critical area for us in terms of stormwater management, as much of our downtown stormwater runs down into this area and ultimately drains down into Sand Creek. In February or about March of this year, Bridge Street LLC and the managing partner of the firm came to the city to discuss options and have a pre-planning meeting relative to proposed development at the site. The developer indicated at that time, they are looking at a multi-use building that has the Return of the Hound on the street level portion of the building, as well as some other commercial interests in the building and residential on the upper floors of the building. At that time, the developer had asked the city whether we would consider selling a portion of our property located directly east of the private property in order to accommodate a larger development and provide for more public access and a view of the waterfront, really kind of trying to turn the property around. And at the time, the developer talked to us about a concept similar to a river walk down in San Antonio, for those that may be familiar with that, where you've got restaurants, you've got businesses that are facing towards the water. It's a public gathering and walking area. And so he had that concept. At that same time, we were going through our planning for Farman's Landing and our downtown waterfront concept as part of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And the city has had a long-term goal of trying to acquire as much additional right-of-way as we possibly could acquire from this parcel along Bridge Street to better align our sidewalk and the right-of-way on Bridge Street, and then kind of our jog that we take from Bridge Street onto Church Street. So we asked the developer to come back to us with a suggested proposal where they might want a portion of the city property, but also understanding that the city wanted a portion of the developer's property to align the right-of-way. We also provided a copy of the concept for the downtown waterfront to the developer and said, and you also need to consider this in your design. The developer came back to the city with a proposal for the acquisition of 3,678 square feet of city property, and that is depicted here in this concept as the kind of light blue shaded area. Again, for reference, the city parcel goes from within Sand Creek all the way up to that red edge on the east side of the private development. So the proposal was for a portion of the city property, the portion that is noted in the purple, going between the orange line and to the public waterfront would stay city-owned, that portion of the parcel under this proposal. The developer also came to the city and offered, in exchange for this property, 6 additional feet along Bridge Street for a total of 889 square feet, which would provide us an additional 6 feet of linear width of right-of-way, as depicted on this picture here in yellow. There was a proposal back and forth relative to the plan in order again to achieve our concept down at the waterfront. And as a reminder for council and the public, this concept, which has actually been in 2 years of development, it originally started under development with a grant through the Lohr Foundation, where we were primarily focused on not only creating that downtown gateway, but also the stormwater treatment. And so the Lohr Foundation funded an initial iteration of this design. And the preferred design that was chosen through that process contemplated the removal of the ramp from Bridge Street down to this parking area and the construction of a retaining wall to take maximum advantage again of this area. This plan was further developed and reiterated over the last year through our parks planning process. Again, one of our concept areas for specific plan development was down on the downtown waterfront. And so as depicted here with our final concept through our waterfront plan, it contemplated the potential of this property swap, but took into consideration the broader downtown. So you can see the consideration to our Sand Creek parking lot, as well as all the way down to Cedar Street for an potential extension in the future, with working with adjacent property owners on the public boardwalk. As we worked through a trade with this developer, one of our first steps was to go through and get appraisals for both of the parcels as required by Idaho law. And we received our appraisals in July of this year. And for the property that is currently, the parcel that's currently owned by the city, the value of that parcel is $410,000 according to the appraiser. In discussions with the appraiser, they did not give us a square footage calculation on this, and instead had the recommendation that were we to consider trading any portion of this property, the value really needed to be the whole amount of the property. So what you can see included in this proposed swap for the value of our property is the value for the entire parcel at $410,000. We also had an appraisal done of the parcels owned by Bridge Street LLC. And again, in this trade, the city would acquire an additional 890 square feet of right-of-way. And that is valued at $46,673. That's a per square foot calculation as provided in the appraisal. In meeting the city's plan, concept plan for the development of the downtown waterfront and the improvements on the Farman's Landing parcel, again, this contemplated removal of the existing access ramp to Bridge Street and the construction of a retaining wall. The developer provided us initially with his estimated cost for this removal and construction. The city independently reached out to a local public works contractor, and we got our own independent estimate to verify that value. That value is, as included in this proposed swap, is $182,680. For the public and council, if you've been in the downtown core lately and you've been down on Bridge Street in particular, our sidewalk is still primarily blocked off in this area. We've got support beams there supporting our right-of-way. During the fire, one of the elements that was damaged was the basement walls of the structure, and those basement walls support our right-of-way along Bridge Street, which makes this particular swap and kind of the sequencing of how this would move if approved by council somewhat complicated. And it's also the reason that we have not been able to reopen that sidewalk is we need the building to be constructed and that foundation wall to be constructed to provide a support for both the existing right-of-way as well as any extension of the right-of-way as proposed in this concept. In addition, at the time that the building wall would be constructed, that would be the time for the removal of the ramp and the construction of a new retaining wall extending back where the ramp currently is located. And that would be a part of this construction project. So that is why that portion is put on the developer, and the cost of that, the city would receive the benefit that it would be anticipated that the construction would occur by the developer in conjunction with the reconstruction of the building. As depicted on both of in our concept, and it's noted here in the small words, but the location of where these would be are depicted here in blue. This concept anticipates pedestrian stairway, so there's pedestrian access from Bridge Street down to the waterfront area and vice versa. It is anticipated that this be constructed coming down onto what would be a balcony that would be owned by the private developer, but extending onto the city portion of the parcel, city-owned portion, and down to the boardwalk on the waterway. The city would construct the stairway, and we received an estimate for the construction of that at $150,000. This swap, as presented, contemplates Bridge Street LLC contributing half of the cost of that project, so paying the city $75,000 for the construction of that stairway because it would benefit the private development as well. Because that stairway comes down onto the portion of Bridge Street LLC property, and where they would have a public deck, they would provide the city a public easement for public access to that area and down to the stairs that are on the city portion of the parcel. An area in town where we have a similar situation between public access and the business using the space is on our buildings just south of Bridge Street, where Starbucks is located, where Lakeshore Realty is located, and Burger Dock. And they've got a large deck there, and the public uses that as an access way back and forth, but it really is there for the private business use. In addition, Bridge Street LLC will construct or contribute as we figure out the segue of this project and how best to proceed. The 12-foot sidewalk and or a combination of pavers in there as approved by the city along Bridge Street, which would include curb, ornamental lights like we have throughout the rest of our newly revitalized portion of downtown, and street furniture consistent with our city standards. Based on our costs, our recent costs for this work through the downtown, we estimate the value at this of $74,055. Between these amounts and the value, the full value of the city parcel at $410,000, that leaves a balance of $181,592 that would be paid from Bridge Street LLC to the city of Sandpoint to be used towards the construction of the downtown waterfront concept at Farman's Landing, including the construction of a dock retaining wall. So the intention all along for stormwater management along that area would be to extend the bank out to the boardwalk. Currently, we have the shoreline that comes down, and we've got a space of about 24 inches that where it's really water collector. We have stormwater draining off of there, but it would be to shore up the bank out to the public dock and put in a retaining wall there for stormwater management. In addition, we contemplate completing landscape improvements on both the parcel behind this Bridge Street LLC parcel, as well as along the whole Farman's Landing, and that would be really phase one of our moving forward with this downtown waterfront concept construction. In terms of the public benefit of this project, Bridge Street LLC contemplates construction, again, of a new multi-use building valued at approximately $16 million. This will benefit both our downtown, contributing to the revitalization of the downtown core, create a new destination point within our downtown, and also bring back one of our beloved institutions, the Hound. It will also generate new property tax revenues for the city, estimated at approximately $75,200 a year. That's using our current property tax levy per $1,000 in value. It will also generate an approximate $70,000 in development impact fees. And these fees are where new development pays for capital impacts of that new development. And according to our development impact fees, it supports public safety capital projects around mobility and fire services, mobility for police specifically. We have impact fees that are specifically designated for street and pathway projects throughout town, and it also supports parks infrastructure improvements, as well as park acquisitions. So as we have done parks improvements, and specifically, and we have it on our agenda again tonight, talking about phase 2 of War Memorial Field, we have used some of our parks impact fees to pay for those capital improvements. Again, for some of this open space down at Farman's Landing, our parks capital impact fees could benefit that beyond the $182,000 that is received from the developer. We have budgeted some funding in this next fiscal year budget for phase 1 of the Sand Creek downtown waterfront concept. And really this additional funding from the developer helps us move that concept along further and makes it more viable for us going into this next year. This will also create a public-private outdoor gathering space, again, on the developer's property, providing for a public easement, which contributes to our overall downtown vitality and character. But beyond that development, it starts to support that outdoor gathering space and lively activity space down at Farman's Landing along the waterfront, which is contemplated with our downtown waterfront concept. And then finally, it will improve our pedestrian, vehicular, and bicycle access and safety between downtown Sandpoint and City Beach along Bridge Street, specifically with that additional right-of-way. And we can show you a concept of what that looks like, and I'll have Amanda speak to that in the interim. In the long term, there will be a broader plan for improvements at that intersection at Bridge and First and at Church and First as part of our multimodal plan and as part of phase 3 of our downtown revitalization project. We'll be moving into design of that project, engineering design next year, and we're looking at construction probably about 2.5 years out for downtown. But we anticipate coming in the next couple of months this fall discussions about what those long-term intersection improvements look like specifically here as part of our multimodal plan. I'm going to switch over to, I'm going to hand it off to you, Amanda, to talk a little bit about the improvements and the benefit of this additional right-of-way here along Bridge.
Excellent, thank you. I'll start off by saying that we're really excited to start having conversations about this intersection. It's obviously one of our most challenging locations within the city. But with that said, we could really take a deep dive into transportation. It's a topic many people like to discuss, and there's lots of different ways to solve our challenges there. As Jennifer mentioned, what we're showing here tonight is an initial draft concept for the interim. Our long-term solutions here and even further refinement of this image is really through our multimodal planning effort. That is where we have engaged the public. We continue to engage the public. We have committees established to work through all of the various concerns that have been brought up by the public and by our entire leadership team of how do we go about resolving not only the mobility challenges that we have there, which are very real. Our most recent modeling actually shows that this intersection performs at a level of service, which is how we, from a data perspective, look at the functionality. And it's currently reported at an F as in Frank. The way that the level of service categories work, it's alphabetical, A being the best, F being the worst. And so that's from a mobility in vehicle perspective. We also have a significant challenge with pedestrians here. Everyone has been there and recognizes that being a pedestrian in this zone has multiple challenges. Some of those pedestrian challenges are also causing our vehicle challenges, right? And then furthermore, as we've been talking about for many, many years, is how do we get an 8-year-old to City Beach safely on their bicycle? So all of those factors have kind of weighed into our interim solutions as well as our long-term solutions. The image that you see here definitely needs further refinement, but one topic that we're really excited to kind of start further vetting, and we are in the process of looking at other jurisdictions and best practices, is potentially having some areas, this one in particular, in our downtown core where we have no outdoor seating on the sidewalks and some other criteria where we might actually have a little bit more flexibility to allow bicycles and pedestrians to come together. We already see that on the pedestrian and bicycle pathway along the bridge itself right now. And how could we safely transition that to some portions of our downtown core? It obviously doesn't make sense in much of our downtown from a safety perspective. This area, it may be one that it does. So what you'll see in this image are wider sidewalks, both on the north and on the south. One additional element that's pretty significant of a conversation that we're just on the cusp of starting to have is that the parking lot, the private parking lot adjacent to Starbucks, has an exit, an entrance and an exit that is not favorable to pedestrians or mobility, right? We have, when you're in that parking lot, you're often coming across and having to back up onto the pedestrian sidewalk. You're exiting within a couple feet of an already congested intersection. So it's just compounding the overall functionality there. So we are, like I said, on the cusps of trying to have conversations about what are our options for that parking lot in the long term. They have not been fully vetted yet. This image is showing potentially widening the sidewalk in front of those businesses and shifting some of the parking and retaining the parking adjacent to those buildings as well. And trying to incorporate diagonal parking or something of that accord to get more parking spaces in place south of Bridge Street. So that's one element. The other is to maintain turn pockets. So last year, you may or may not have noticed, we actually striped a southbound left turn pocket onto Bridge Street. We observed it and it functioned actually quite well. You can't store a lot of vehicles there, but you can some. And this year, we striped a right northbound turn onto Bridge Street. So looking at all of those factors and trying to merge them together and looking at what we gain in this swap of having that additional space for sidewalk and bringing bicycles and pedestrians together for those that choose that mode, as well as having wide lanes to accommodate the large vehicles that are coming in and out of City Beach, and to accommodate those that actually do prefer to be on the street with their bicycle, right? We kind of have two different perspectives on that. And then I would say the third element that's shown here, it's just not labeled, is looking at options for temporary, and by temporary I mean seasonal, planter type of objects that we could actually put to provide in the intersection, to provide a physical barrier, if you will, to preclude that left turn southbound coming out of the beach. We have it signed. You can't take a left right now southbound, but we still have people that do it, as our most recent data did prove. So kind of a combination of all of those elements we anticipate will address many of the concerns that we have in the short term. In the long term, we are going to continue doing our modeling. We're going to continue to engage people with feedback and further vet this. The last piece I would say is that we're really excited about the opportunities as, if this is approved this evening by council, of working with the developer to further coordinate and integrate the public space and the sidewalks with access down to the Farman's Landing from the existing pedestrian bridge that goes across Sand Creek itself and then down into Farman's. So that's my overview. Is there anything else you wanted to know?
Is that it?
Back to the presentation. Before we move into the public hearing, a couple of things I wanted to note about this. So that what is before the council tonight is consideration of the land swap. It's not consideration of the design of the building. We'll be moving forward with when we move into final engineering design down on the Farman Landing, the waterfront property. There you will see likely some changes with that, kind of like what you've seen with Memorial Field, but the overall concept would be the direction that this is driven. But with us tonight, we also have Cliff Davis. He is the managing partner of Bridge Street LLC, and I want to give Cliff a couple few minutes as the developer to kind of share with us a little bit about his vision and what he's looking for with the timeline with his improvements at this property and his commitment to Sandpoint. I know there's been a lot of questions. We take a lot of questions here at the city about what's happening here, and we're looking forward to seeing something rise out of the ground. So Cliff, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. You've been so thorough. I don't know that I have a lot to add, but I've had discussions with various members from the city council, but to the residents that are in attendance, maybe I can share a few of my thoughts. First of all, with apologies to everyone, my company is currently the owner of the biggest eyesore in Sandpoint, and we'd like to get that fixed as soon as possible. I think from a vision standpoint, I always looked at that area long before the fires and thought it was a little bit backwards in that if you're walking down First Street, it's a beautiful street, but it could be in the middle of Ohio or any other Midwest town because you're so close to the beautiful waterfront, but it's not really visible. So I thought it was strange that the parking and dumpsters were on the waterfront side. And of course it just evolved that way, but in hopes that our project would be the first to really incorporate both sides. So we would have more public access and just more energy down near the waterfront. We want to be a good neighbor. I own a home in Sandpoint. I love it there. I'm proud when I bring friends there. We want to build a project that's consistent with the architectural design of the city and maintain, the historic, culture of the city in what we build. Obviously, it's a project that it's the first thing you see if you come into town. So we really want to build something that we're proud of and that all the residents and the city council will be proud of as well. So we're committed to that. The architecture of the town is something I really like, so it makes it easy. And I'm looking forward to working with all the constituents to make sure that we get something that people really like. When I bought the second lot, the lot closest to Bridge Street from R.J. Wilcox, he had developed quite an affinity for Ben Higgs, the owner of the Hound, and was very concerned that I'd make sure we accommodate him in the lease. He passed Ben on to me, and I would say I've developed the same affinity. He's a great young man, entrepreneurial, and proud of the town. And among our highest priorities is to get him back in business as soon as possible. I don't really have a lot beyond that. We really look forward to having a great project and working with the city, certainly making that street safer and building something that is not just for private use, but also for public access. So we'd like to get started quickly with hopes that we would be able to start pouring concrete with a thaw in the spring.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Davis, and thank you for that presentation, Jennifer and Amanda. Does staff have any, or I'm sorry, does council have any questions for staff or for Mr. Davis at this point?
I have some questions here. We had an email today with several things, and I know that when we had the concept public meetings, we talked about this over and over, but I just kind of want to hear it again so that the public knows that we've addressed this. And probably this would be best asked to the chiefs, both Chief Kuhn and fire and police. The subject was emergencies. One of the examples was when Finn and McDonald had their little fire emergency the other day. And the worry is that if we take out the ramp, that people won't be able to get out of the area, that they'll be stuck down there. So if you could kind of address how that you would take care of that.
The chief's at the podium, calling the chiefs to the podium.
Sure, so I can address your traffic issues. Every time we have a incident in town anywhere, you're gonna have water lines stretched across the road, fire engines out there. This project isn't going to affect that in any significant manner. Whether there was an opening on Bridge Street down there or not, you're gonna end up with fire engines and 5-inch diameter hose running across the roads, and we do what we can to allow traffic to get through there, but there are times when we are going to have to block off traffic for the safety of ourselves as well as the citizens. So changing this intersection, get rid of that ramp isn't going to block anybody in any more than if we had a engine down there and was blocking off Bridge Street or any other road down there, because we have to access the hydrants. So it doesn't have a significant impact on our operations or the safety of the public, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Chief Kuhn, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think you summed it up quite well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Council, any other questions?
Very thorough. It was great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll now move on to the public hearing. And I would note that written comments received regarding this matter have been forwarded to council. The order and procedure of the hearing will be as follows. You heard already the presentation by city staff and Bridge Street LLC. At this time, we will hear any public testimony that the public may want to give. Questions should be asked of the person testifying at that time. Those who wish to testify are required to sign up to speak. We will hear from City of Sandpoint residents first, then from those who live outside of our city limits. The order for those providing testimony will be as follows. First, those in favor of the proposal. Second, those neutral. And third, those opposed to the proposal. Final questions may be asked for city staff or representatives of Bridge Street LLC at this time. The public hearing will then be closed. Council will deliberate. No new information may be provided at that time once the public hearing is closed. Any questions may be directed only to city staff during deliberation. So the public hearing is now open. I will accept public testimony on the proposed real property exchange at First Avenue and Bridge Street. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. Clerk, our first speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to check with someone online real quick. Jessica Jansen, are you in favor of this proposal, neutral or opposed?
I am in favor.
All right, you're our first speaker then.
Great, thank you. My name
You'll
is
need to
Jessica.
speak up just a little bit, Ms. Jansen, for us all to hear you.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. Okay, very good. Sorry. My name is
Barely.
Barely. Is that better?
We may just have to do what we can with that. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Is this better?
Sure, that's good.
Thank you. Okay. My name is Jessica Jansen. I'm a 12-year resident of Sandpoint. I'm a former member of the Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Committee, and I've participated in some of the recent focus community steering teams to represent pedestrian and bicycle interests, specifically for children and families. So as Amanda mentioned before, getting a school-age child from their Sandpoint home to City Beach has been a problem that many of us in the community have focused a lot of time and energy on trying to solve. I do feel like Amanda's presentation answered a lot of the questions I had. However, the proposal to have certain corridors such as this where pedestrians and cyclists would share sidewalk, I think is problematic. I realize you can't create space where there isn't any, and that's a real pinch point. But that for one, there's been a lot of public commentary. I follow the Engage app, and there's been downtown business owners and people all summer citing safety issues with pedestrians and cyclists and patrons dining outside, all trying to integrate safely, and there's some real concerns with that. There's been a lot of education in our community about walking your bicycle and walking your skateboard and not utilizing sidewalks, and I feel like from an education piece, it would be very problematic to allow that in some areas and not others, and I don't even know where one would begin to enforce that. So I don't have any, I wish I had more ideas for what a better proposed solution is. Again, there's only so much space to work with down there for everyone. I think as personally speaking, as a mother who shepherds 2 children down there all the time on bicycles, we prefer to walk our bicycles through the crosswalks, and then once we're on Bridge Street, we participate out in the roadway with vehicles, and that's what I've found to be the least of all evils. But it sure would be nice to have a designated cyclist corridor similar to what we have now on sections of Oak, where I don't have to be concerned as a bicyclist that I'm going to interact, with vehicles or pedestrians for that matter. I think it's worth noting that cycling has always been a big part of our community, and there's, if you speak to anyone in the business right now, there's been a real pandemic-fueled cycling boom. I notice it. It's really noticeable around town how many people are making better use of that mode of transportation, and I think we need to be careful that that anything we do going forward makes that a priority as well, not an afterthought. So that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Jansen. Appreciate that.
Rebecca Holland, are you in favor of this proposal? Would you like to speak during time of neutral speakers? Our next speaker will be Mr. Ben Higgs.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Ben Higgs. I live in Sagal. I own Powderhound Pizza and Idaho Port Authority and the Hound downtown. I'm in favor of the land swap that has been proposed, not only as a future tenant, but also I believe it'll benefit the public tremendously in many different ways. It'll provide funding for the first phase of the Sand Creek downtown waterfront concept, which will take some of the burden off taxpayer and city funded parts of it. It will help create a new and improved public gathering place near the boardwalk and waterfront, and dramatically improve an area of downtown that has been an eyesore even before the fire. And most importantly, it will improve pedestrian, bike, and vehicle traffic to and from City Beach. Over the years working at the Hound, there were numerous occasions where pedestrians, bikes, and vehicles came to close contact and collision with people using that one way the wrong way. And a few times it did result in collisions between bicycles and vehicles. Land swap would eliminate this and create a wider road for vehicles, walkway, and more access to the boardwalk through the proposed stairway that was addressed earlier by Jennifer. Along with all the public benefits, it would also allow us to start the rebuilding process of one of Sandpoint's favorite restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Higgs. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, I will check if there's anyone else attending by Zoom who is in favor of this proposal and would like to speak, please raise your hand. I believe that's all in favor, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any signed up as neutral?
Yes. Jason Welker.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jason Welker. I live in South Sandpoint. I am the Executive Director of the Ponderay Peddlers, the local cycling organization and trails group, as many of you know. Jessica, the last speaker, I think said a lot of the things I wanted to say. I also have an 8-year-old daughter. I still happen to have one, as Amanda pointed out. That's one of my goals, is to be able to get my daughter safely to and from City Beach. That intersection, as everybody knows, is a nightmare for cyclists. Actually, before tonight's meeting, I went down there with my dog, ran into the mayor on my way, and just stood there and watched kids riding up and down Bridge Street. And I saw them just go straight down the middle of Bridge Street, oncoming traffic. There is absolutely no safe way to get from City Beach into downtown and then continuing west along the preferred corridor for cyclists, which is Oak Street. But if you're coming from Oak Street and you reach First Avenue, there is a safe way to get to City Beach presently, and that is to cross and go down behind the shops on First Avenue and take that Farmers Landing route, which then allows you to get up the ramp and turn left directly onto the separate pedestrian bridge out to City Beach. Standing there for several minutes today, thinking about what makes the most sense, my first thought was bicycle lane on Bridge Street to get people out to First Avenue. I do have concerns about a shared sidewalk, and that's open for bicycles as well. That doesn't really fit with what anybody's ever taught about where to ride your bikes. So I'm not thrilled about that proposal. But one thing I would like you to consider is the idea of, instead of just a pedestrian stairwell down to the creek level behind the new Hound, which, by the way, I can't wait, love the Hound. If there's any way to engineer design a bicycle-friendly ramp that could allow cyclists and direct traffic down behind those First Avenue businesses, just keep them off of First Avenue, that crazy busy intersection. Personally, I won't let my daughter ride to City Beach on her own right now. I have to be right there behind her, she right behind me, making sure that we're doing our hand signals and very carefully dodging cars on First Avenue to turn onto Bridge Street. But I could see preserving the existing east-west cycle route, which, if you are following the cycling signs from Oak Street and Main Street, where Oak turns into Main, you reach First. Currently the east-west cycle route, which is actually on Google Maps as well, directs you down beside the Canada and behind those First Avenue businesses, and then up the ramp that is currently one way for cars. So if there's any way in the engineering and the design of this project we could preserve a bicycle-friendly ramp from the pedestrian section of Bridge Street Bridge down to Farmers Landing, and then design a cycling path in the future development back there. That would allow particularly kids who live, I live in South Sandpoint, but for all the kids who live in Central Sandpoint out towards Division, that east-west corridor of Oak Street, Main Street, you go straight and go down to the creek.
That is 3 minutes.
Okay.
Just preserving some access.
Thank you, Mr. Welker. Appreciate that.
Rebecca Holland.
Good evening, Council. For the record, my name is Rebecca Holland, 45-year resident of Bonner County, 30-year business owner in Sandpoint, and for 8 years between 2012 and 2019, I served on the Sandpoint Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee. Let me start with a little history. In 2010, the City Council approved the Downtown Street Plan, to which our Bike Head Committee referenced, in creating 5 designated bike routes. In 2013, these routes were adopted by City Council, and funding was approved for the color-coded signage you see throughout town. Of particular interest tonight is the main east-west route that runs on Oak Street from Division to First, crosses next to Canada, down through Farm and Landing, once called Gunnings Alley, and up to the point of this proposed swap, next to the multimodal bridge over Sand Creek. This east-west route is color-coded yellow, and you will find this, this exact sign posted next to the Canada. That's the east-west. The sun comes up in the east, goes down in the west. Kids will remember yellow. You will also find our Explore Sandpoint map with these approved routes on the city website, at the Chamber of Commerce, at various bike shops, as well as a 6-foot kiosk that is there leading down to Farm and Landing. This is all very established. Regarding this land swap, there are many good things proposed here. However, the important link at Bridge Street to connect cyclists to the multimodal bridge over Sand Creek is being overlooked in this proposal before you tonight. What is needed is to add a 6-foot wide separated bike lane to be constructed next or going up to the near the proposed steps. It would follow along the same line as the edge of the grassy area below. A modest buildup to reduce the grade could be engineered. This area is absolutely key in moving people safely towards City Beach, as well as the recreational Creekside Trail and the Ponderay Bay Trail. The long lingering question in our community has been, how do we get an 8-year-old safely on their bike to City Beach? As much as we know improvements along First in the southeast block in front of Spuds will be beneficial for South Sandpoint, the greater majority of residents with children live in the direction of our east-west route. Let's answer this question once and for all and design this swap a method for children, adults, and vacationers to safely ride a bike to City Beach. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I will check if there's anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak who is neutral to this proposal. And those are all who wish to speak who are neutral, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And those opposed?
We have no one signed up to speak who is opposed to this proposal. If anyone on Zoom would like to speak who is opposed to the proposal, please raise your hand.
And I would give those present here today an opportunity again, if anyone wants to speak up again in opposition to this proposal, please stand up and be heard now. Okay. The public hearing is now, well, let me ask first, does council have any follow-up questions that need to be addressed? Okay, I will now close the public hearing, and I would remind council that any questions at this point will be directed to staff only. And we can now deliberate. I would welcome any comments at this time. Okay, I have a question for staff. It seems that, for the most part, we have, I think it'd be safe to say, overwhelming support for this project, but I do hear a significant concern from the public around multimodal access to the pedestrian bridge from the existing bicycle network adjacent to the Canada. If council were to approve this project tonight, would that preclude any future multimodal connection? I know we've discussed the sidewalk and stairs down to the boardwalk there and down to the parking lot. Would approval of this project preclude any potential future consideration of a multimodal connection?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that it would preclude the construction of a ramp if that's what you're suggesting as a part of this. We've got limited space as part of the city parcel, which really lies below the bridge itself, and to put a ramp in that space, even providing a ramp that was very gradual, would compete with the interest of providing stormwater treatment at that site, as well as the waterfront concept as designed down at Farman's Landing.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the only piece I would add is I genuinely understand the concerns that were brought up. We have a really amazing group, in my opinion, that has participated in our multimodal planning efforts, including all of those that have spoken tonight and including those on the phone. I am confident that we will be able, through our multimodal planning efforts, to find a solution that gets an 8-year-old safely to City Beach. So while we may need to adapt to the guidelines that were previously considered, I think many opportunities exist. And what I will say, although the initial vision with that pathway going to Farman's Landing connected to the Oak Path, and it is hugely successful as it is today, what we're finding through our analysis and through the experts that we've hired in this multimodal plan is that bicycles and pedestrians come from all portions of town, and a single pathway to the beach is not as realistic as it appeared to be initially many years ago. And so I think if we can find ways to look at our holistic system downtown and how to improve it for bicycles and pedestrians through the overall network, I think that's where our success is going to lie. So although this decision may preclude the ramp, it doesn't preclude us from achieving our overall goal, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? If none, I will propose a motion for consideration that any of you can champion. So I will entertain a motion to approve. After duly considering the public testimony along with the information that has been provided by city staff, and with all the necessary steps having been taken under Chapter 14 of Title 50 Idaho Code, I move that it is in the city's best interest that the parcel of land 0.31 acre in size owned by the city, described as 22-57 North-2 West, Kelch's additional all walkway, parcel RPS 02150000001AA, be offered for exchange, and that the city council do all things necessary to exchange this property for real property and other consideration of equal value, pursuant to the terms that have been negotiated and which shall be matter of public record. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Deb has something to say.
Yes. Councilwoman Rule.
I just wanted to state publicly that I do believe in the staff's ability and the multimodal plan. As our town changes, I think some of the routes that we planned are going to change. I do feel like we will have strong efforts to get those kids to the beach. And we may see as we develop and redo the rest of First Avenue that we'll see other options arise. I also agree that people come from all parts of town, and we have to think of that holistically. I do respect and appreciate the comments from all the people who have worked many, many years on these safe routes for our small children and pedestrians and bikers. So I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I really appreciate those comments.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would agree that currently, right now, we have the right staff and the right people in place to take the input from the old and the new and the current, and to be able to really, there's no better time than to have that holistic approach. And I think that we've got the right people in place to be able to make that happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, this will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilman Spurrow,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Grote.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, under old business, is a proposed resolution adopting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Following the presentation during City Council's regular meeting on September 2nd, 2020, Council will now consider adoption of the final plan. Does Council have any questions? Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have several people who would like to comment on this matter. First will be Rebecca Holland.
Good evening. I only have a brief comment to make. I have been in studying the city beach design. I don't know what other name to call it. Been a little dismayed that there is nowhere on it to be seen anything of direction for bike lanes or any designated area for bike parking. I know that a city code requires that it be clearly stated that there's enough bike parking spots reserved to balance with the number of vehicle parking spots. I think it was 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. Therefore, designated space needs to be established. That is on the right of passage as you come to it, not off to someplace. Clear trails that lead you to that with lighting and all the safe necessary things that we need for parking bikes. It was discussed long ago in our pedestrian bicycle advisory committee that one of the things to encourage people to ride bikes downtown will open up more parking for others, for people that insist on driving or come from out of the area. A lot of people would like to ride their bikes, and a lot of people come down, moms and dads with cabooses with children, and a corral set up that is specified just for them with enough space where they can get in and out of the things that they need and not be tightly corridored would be, I would think, part of the plan that's needed. And really, in terms of always hearing about this multimodal transportation and being holistic now is the new buzzword, we really can't continue to overlook the cyclist. It's just a very important part of transportation that I would like to see, and many people in the community would like to see actually drawn into the plans. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Charlie Walker.
Hello, my name is Charlie Walker. I live in Ponderay. I'm on the Sandpoint Disc Golf Association board. One of our board members had an accident yesterday, so we had a little shuffling. I'll be reading his part as well, I believe. But anyway, disc golf has been established as a staple outdoor endeavor in and around Sandpoint. The local history of this sport spans over the last 4 decades. To give a general idea of what has gone into developing Sandpoint disc golf, one would have to start as far back as the 1980s. Much can be said for the determination, ingenuity, and passion of the disc golfers who have worked to create both the ball-foot disc golf course as well as a robust local disc golf scene. It has been an ongoing effort spanning nearly 40 years to get where we are today. There have been numerous temporary courses played throughout the years. These have been set up on both public and private land, some with permission, others not so much. This illustrates the ongoing effort to fill the demand for somewhere to play disc golf close to home. Historically, these courses existed until they became too busy or were shut down. During the 90s and early 2000s, if you were a local disc golfer, there was somewhere to play. However, if you wanted to play a legitimate or sanctioned course, you had to go to Farragut State Park, which was created with the help of Sandpoint locals. As disc golf progressed as a whole, so did our local base of enthusiasts, thanks in part to a core group of players who have consistently provided a place to play. In 2011, there was an opportunity to build a course at the U of I property on Boyer Avenue. Many people were surprised by the outpouring of support that culminated in the rapid creation of a 36-hole disc golf course. The Vandal course played for 2 years and the Sandpoint Disc Golf Association was formed. The SDGA is comprised of people who have worked hard throughout the years and advocated to establish disc golf for Sandpoint. In 2013, the SDGA was offered the opportunity to operate at Baldy property where the course is today. There was much to consider in deciding to uproot our brand new course on Boyer and move it to its current location. A lot of hard work had been done and we had a great course. Was it worth it? Would we have enough support from the people who spent time, money, and energy at the Vandal course? Ultimately, 2 main factors pushed the group to take on the momentous project that is now Baldfoot Disc Golf Course. First and foremost was the opportunity to finally be supported by and work with the city of Sandpoint to create a course in perpetuity that would enhance the community indefinitely. By building around the proposed footprint of the future water treatment plant, we would not only be able to establish a permanent course, but a better one. That's about it for my time on this.
Thank you for those comments. Appreciate that.
Thanks for listening. Will I go do John's first of all?
So John Gaddis is in the hospital, and we're talking quick, and she said it'd be okay if Charlie read his portion as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
For a glimpse of the ongoing effort that is Baldfoot Disc Golf Course, one can visit the Sandpoint Disc Golf Association Facebook page and see a history of work parties, tournaments, and fundraising. Currently, there are 2 public leagues. The Tuesday Night Singles League has been playing since 2011. The Doubles League has also formed and plays year-round. There are hundreds of players that participate yearly, and we average around 20 players per league night. In addition to the above-mentioned league and tournament play, daily use has grown steadily year over year. Measuring from the $1 per use donations, we have seen record use each month for over 5 years straight. This is also an overall vision of multi-use to further meet community needs. The Baldfoot 18-hole course and the Ace Garden 9-hole par 2 course are fully established and maintained. In addition, alternate fairways and tee box positions have been cut in for an additional 18 holes, or B course, on the Baldfoot Loop. The overall vision for this property includes a perimeter nature trail connecting with 2 other local trail systems, a contained and dedicated dog park, bike camping, as well as bathroom facilities and general park accoutrements, i.e. additional tables, etc. However, the city chose to scrap the previous plan for upgrading and regionalizing our outdated wastewater treatment facility that the property was originally acquired for. This has created a situation where our lease has not been renewed as originally agreed. Rather, we have been extended a year at a time and are now required to pay the interest on the bond in addition to maintaining, managing, and insuring the property per the original lease agreement through the Eureka Institute. With no assurance that this course and community park will be preserved as intended, the SDGA suspended further development in 2017 and focused on maintaining the existing 27 holes. In the interim, we have been in a holding pattern and have worked to raise awareness, funds for interest payments, and maintenance. Overwhelming potential momentum has been created in hopes of completing the full vision of what started 8 years ago. As it is, Baldfoot recently made the top 100 disc golf courses in the world. The survey was done by UDisc, the official app of the Professional Disc Golf Association, which maps over 10,000 courses worldwide. In short, many of you may be familiar with the Hidden Lakes Golf Course that used to be a gem in our community. When it was no longer Hidden Lakes, everyone became the Hidden Lakes Orphans. We don't want to become the Baldfoot Orphans. Thank you for
Appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Trevor? You'll need to state your full name, Trevor, when you come to the podium, please.
Okay. Hello, my name is Trevor Bumnia, 29-year resident of my 34 years in existence here. I'm from Priest River. I teach at the University of Idaho. I research park design and recreation management, and I'm writing a dissertation on the emergence of the sport of disc golf. If I can just give you a little bit of background information, just to kind of give you the big picture, top-down view of disc golf. There's 10,000 of these things in the ground. The growth curve is just absolutely insane to look at. It's very much like we're facing a lot of the same barriers that they were facing with skateboarding in the early 90s. When everyone's like, oh, it's going to be a fad, this is going to blow over. Well, it just, the land use potential is so enormous because the size we utilize is so small. Maintenance is so negligible that it's just growing so quick right now. I've played in 25 states. I tour all over the country playing competitions, obviously writing a book on it. So I am a little bit vested in this, particularly because this is my community. I live in Hope. I teach at the university remotely. I speak at the Idaho Recreation and Parks conventions about these. I design courses. I'm probably one of the premier course designers in the inland Northwest, if not the Pacific Northwest. I put these things in the ground all over the place. Essentially, I study the economic impacts right now related to disc golf course installation. And if you have the infrastructure, you can really bring in some revenue. If you look at Emporia, Kansas, they run the Glass Blown Open. It's a town of about 20,000 people. Probably 25,000, with a major metro draw, much like Spokane, much like we have in this region. And if we can develop the capacity to do what they're doing, they're making $2.2 million every year with the Glass Blown Open. It's a week-long shut down the city block party where they're bringing in revenue that sustains that, and 2 other events they facilitate through their tourism department, generates enough revenue to facilitate all of their recreation programming for the entire year. It literally sustains their town. Without disc golf, there is no Emporia, Kansas. It's barely bigger than Sandpoint. Sandpoint's growing. Everybody's aware of that. We just went over all the proposals for all the road development and the problems that we face because we're faced with this density issue. don't pull a public park, don't pull a rec site right now. Not with the way we're growing. It would be akin to putting condos on Sandpoint Beach. To me, it seems so salient. But please just reconsider. There really are good options to maintain this. It's top 100 in North Idaho out of the world. There's 8,000 courses in the country, and we're literally just starting to tip it. And we have Caliber just outside of town, also top 100. So there's a real chance here. I'd love to, if anybody wants to shoot me an email or look into my research, I'd be more than happy to facilitate a private discussion about this. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Pumney. Appreciate those comments.
Eric Donenfeld.
Hello, Eric Donenfeld, Sandpoint resident, local business owner. So when I told my family I was going to ditch them and come down here to a meeting today, they asked me, what was it about? What's going on? And I told them that the Frisbee golf course where we play all the time, there's a chance we could lose it. And, you know, it really resonated with me that the health benefits of bringing the family out there. We play like once or twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And the other thing that really resonated with me is that, you know, that's the closest area where we can go into the woods still in town, right? You can still go to the woods, but it's in town. You know, I asked myself, can we afford to lose this land, right? Can we purchase this land in the future? What is the value of land now compared to the future? You know, I don't know that answer, but this is a question I was asking myself. When it came down to value, I think that the future value is to purchase it now, in my opinion. How many tourists does it bring to town? Being a top 100 ranked golf course, I don't know, but I know that they have about 1,200 uses per month. You know, what about a future place to put snow? Can we afford another spot to put snow in the future that's far away from where we have all of the city trucks? I don't know. What if there is a coal train or oil train spill in the lake? You know, we need to reserve and preserve these waterways that has clean water running off of Sand Creek drainage area for future things. You know, you never know if something were to happen. The last couple of things, excuse me, is that it's supported by so many local businesses. Northwest Idaho, there's 18 different businesses that have purchased and constantly support that area. So, you know, I just want everybody to know that, you know, if we were to lose it, it would affect a lot more people and a lot more things than I think anybody would expect. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Donenfeld. Appreciate it.
Paul Stiller.
Hello. Thank you for hearing us tonight, Council. I've been in the Valley for 8 years. I live out on the north end of Culver and Culver, and I helped build Sandpoint, this golf course over here, Baldfoot, back in the day. I have probably 250 tractor hours and other hours in there working. I currently own Caliber Disc Golf Course, which is ranked in between 5th and 10th in the world in disc golf courses. And I'm not here to talk about a lot of the stuff that has been talked about. I just want to talk about the game of golf. And I think all of us play sports. We ski, we ride bikes, we do different things. You can learn a lot from the game of sports. I think golf's unique. I think golf is a great reflection of what happens in life, because all days out there are not good. And some of those days on the golf course that are not good are actually the best lessons you could have. I had my personal best round the other day of 5 down at my course, and I don't know if I learned a thing from it. It was too easy. Some of those days where I am having my worst day on the course, there's things I can learn. In this day and age where people might not be getting along that great, you know, sometimes you go out to play golf, whether it's ball golf or disc golf, you wind up in a group with people you might not necessarily get along with. But that is another opportunity to practice patience and understanding of other people, how they look at things, how they deal with life. Not all things go well. So you have to temper yourself and look at it in the big picture. This isn't like riding a bike or swimming where you kind of get into your own orb and it's an adrenaline sport. This is not an adrenaline sport. It's more of an intellectual sport. You have to mentally make a decision and then physically execute. It's a lot like life. Sometimes you're going to play a risk-reward type of game, and that's a lot like life too. There's a lot of risks you can take that aren't going to get you far. There's some risks you can take in life that will get you down the road. But to play a safe game and a smart game is a lot like life. Whether you're skiing down a slope or riding a bike, when you want to make a swim across the lake, you better pace yourself. And that is just the game of golf. Another thing that the board might want to consider if you're willing to take on this course is make it pay to play, make it pay for itself. I used to swim all around the country, and most public places you can go swim charge $2, $3, maybe $5. You should consider that to make it pay for itself, because nothing's free. Somebody's always has to pay for something. If something is free in life, usually someone else has paid for it. Consider making it work like that.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Still. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Eric Nelson?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Eric Nelson. I am a Sandpoint resident for coming up on 25 years now. I want to say thanks for the time and the consideration, and thanks for everybody else who's spoken. I want to point out that we made it a decision to just bring the board and try to be concise about this. We could have made this look like a lot of the recent meetings at Phillips City Hall. We talked about a lot of things tonight so far. Again, I don't want to repeat them either, but we've heard about revenue potential. We've heard about how much this gets used and how much has been put into this project. What I'd like to talk about is the value here that can't be measured in dollars. And when I think about the first city council meeting that I came to or that I planned to come to speak about the Parks and Rec stuff, it got kicked off the agenda and we had a completely different meeting. But I came because I wanted to see what was going on in our city. And when I walked into the parking lot, I saw a lot of faces that were familiar to me, who had clearly picked a side on whatever was getting argued about that night. There's a lot of social and whatnot things to be at odds about, right? And that was really hard for me as a member of this community, and knowing people on either side of this who had clearly picked a side and were at odds. I wanted to speak at that end of the meeting. I thought about what I could say, or if I could speak without breaking down. And I went for a bike ride. I ended up sitting down with a neighbor who is on the opposite side of a lot of political type things that I am and social issues. We had a great discussion. Okay, when I go to Baldfoot, I see a lot of the same faces on either side of several different issues working and playing together. I think that's important for a community. I don't think, I just think that's just a very current way to illustrate that. As a board, we'd like to preserve this, obviously. At the very least, we'd like 5 years to finish what we started. And if we have to pay for the property, because if it comes down to it, we'll do that. We've been paying this interest. We've been wanting to work with the city. What do you have for a solution? If in 5 years the answer is still sell it, we'll have an answer for that. So appreciate the time. I want to illustrate also a very important point is if this goes away, there is absolutely, it would be impossible to replace as far as walking distance or accessibility from town to duplicate what we've created out there. There's just no other potential for it. So we really appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you again.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Nelson. Appreciate it.
Clay Hutchison?
Hi, Clay Hutchison, Sandpoint resident, and I just wanted to express support for the Parks Plan, which I think is what we're on the agenda here. I've done a bunch of land planning. I managed a project for a couple of years over in Eastern Europe using the same kind of consultants, basically a land use plan from a equivalent city of Sandpoint up to Schweitzer, that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of familiar with the process. Was very happy to have been involved in the process here. And I think we've created a good plan here. And I say we because you've got a staff that was very dedicated to doing this project. Certainly Kim always kept everybody focused on what the primary purpose of the parks are, and not to let us get to allow people to express a lot of ideas, but keeping us focused on what the parks really need to do for Sandpoint. And so I great compliments to the staff in managing this for I guess about 2 years here. The consultants did listen to the community, lots of opportunities for community input and involvement, and I think that a tremendous amount of those ideas and suggestions, both positive and negative, critical and positive, made its way into the plan. And it's, again, it's a 50,000-foot vision. And so there are probably some things that if you authorize this plan tonight, approve this plan, that the city can get together, can start work on right away. But a lot of the other ideas, the bigger ideas, will come about with public-private partnerships that I'm a big proponent of. And you just passed the previous resolution is actually, I think, a great example of a public-private partnership to further the objectives that we all have. So well done on the plan, and I certainly hope you all will consider passing it so that we all can get to work and really building these, building the vision that have come from so many people. And if disc golf is part of that, whether it's a separate parcel or not, I imagine hearing the enthusiasm here, another public-private partnership can be created to accommodate that, and it's probably a worthwhile thing that I think that you guys need to focus on is let's get this plan passed so we can all get to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson. Appreciate your comments tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan adoption, please raise your hand. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your participation tonight. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for adoption of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Is there a motion?
I want to comment first. I've been waiting a long time for this.
I'm sorry.
It's been a 99-yard, in sports speak, I'll make it real quick. It's been a 99-yard drive, and we're at the one ready to punch it in. About 10 yards into the drive, Jennifer Belichick came on as the new coach and got us to the end. And I couldn't be more excited. This truly is a robust plan with our public comments and interest groups and our community. And now we can go in and make decisions and going forward that are all fit the pieces of the puzzle together. And I couldn't be more pleased with everybody's participation. It's truly is this is similar to when we opened up Memorial Field and looked at finally the carpet and all the stuff that we've been working on a long time. And so I just want to thank everybody for this. And it's an awesome plan we can be proud of. And it's a working plan that we're going to stick to, and it's going to change and keep Sandpoint and be sustainable. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have a motion or a second yet.
Oh, I thought we did that. I'm sorry. I would entertain a motion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Discussion. Councilwoman Rule.
I just had a couple comments. I wanted to thank the staff and the public for all their hard work. And as we hopefully move forward with this, since it is that overarching plan as we go forward, I just would like to read some comments that people have come forward to me and wanted me to sort of state to make sure we keep these things in mind. Rebecca had pointed out making sure we do have inclusion of the bikes at beach. I've also had some other people that had concerns about not having the inclusion of more natural space design in some of our parks, more quiet environments. I've also had people be concerned about the need for a splash pad at a beach. They feel like it's kind of urbanizing Sandpoint too much. Also, the maintenance of that splash pad was brought up. I've had some concerns about the boat launch relative to the congestion on the water near the railroad track bridge, where we're going to have another second bridge, and there would be a lot of boats going up and down the creek as boats were loading in and out of the water there. So there were concerns brought up about that. I've also had some significant concerns about there's no guarantee that we would be allowed to dredge that area to put a ramp there. And then a little bit of concern about the moorage that was designed there, if there's actually enough space there relative to Coast Guard standards about boats moving in and out of dock spaces. And then there were some comments lastly about Traverse. I had another handful of people tell me that they think the splash pad there is a great idea for an underserved area where we could use some water play. People were really excited about the pump track. Some people were a little concerned about the intensive field use and of going towards more artificial here. Some people stated one's enough, and I think they're referring to Memorial Field. So again, just kind of wanted to put that out there so as we go forward with a master plan that we keep some of those other concerns in there. I know that there was a lot of opportunity for public to comment, but I don't want to lose perspective on what people's needs and wants are as we move forward. I'm sure we'll have lots of changes as we go along, but.
Well said, Councilwoman. Thank you for those comments. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Espero?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule?
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman Grote?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, under old business, are two resolutions. The first is a request from our firefighters union to extend the current collective bargaining agreement through December 31st, 2020. And the second is a proposal to extend the appointment of Dale Hopkins as interim fire chief also through December 31st. City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton will provide a presentation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By way of background and update, we are in the process with a fire services systems study. And originally that was slated to be completed at the end of August. And we came up with that timing to coincide with the timing of both our collective bargaining agreement renewal as well as our appointment of the interim fire chief. Due to some challenges in being able to really get access to usable data through the CAD system, Spillman, and even our own Firehouse software, it's really delayed the ability of the consultant to complete their data analysis. We've worked through the other side of that to where they've got data that they are working through now. They've been working on for a couple of weeks. And council and the mayor will recall that we did an extension on our contract with the consultants through the end of September. So we are expecting to see a draft report from our consultants the end of September and coming to council in October for a discussion relative to the future of fire services and our shared services approach. So these two items are on the agenda with an extension date through the end of the year to coincide with both consideration of the recommendations that will be contained and discussion in the current study being done by our consultants, and then to allow for any changes that we may need to make moving forward So that is the reason for the request for the extension on both of these items through December 31st.
Okay. Does council have any questions? All right. Is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on this issue? And that's you, staff over there, no one? Okay.
No one online is raising their hand, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, clerk. Appreciate that. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for extension of agreement between the City of Sandpoint and Local 2319 IAFF. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Rule,
Councilwoman, we can't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Yes.
Councilman Espero.
Yes.
Motion passes. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for extension of the interim fire chief appointment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilman Espero,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson.
Motion passes. The final item under old business is approval of the preliminary design for Phase 2 of War Memorial Field, improvements and authorization for staff to finalize the construction documents and advertise the project for bids, with construction contract proposed to be awarded by council next month. Parks and Recreation Director Kim Woodruff and City Engineer Dan Taddock will provide a presentation for us.
I'll chair for you.
All right.
Good evening. Melissa will be pulling up the image here we can talk to. Here tonight to present the preliminary design for Phase 2, seek council approval to complete the construction documents and advertise the project for construction. There we go. This awesome image is courtesy of our Bernardo Wills design team. You may recall last time we presented on this project, provided an update. We talked about the taking advantage of the cancellation of the festival to complete other play elements. Happy to report that softball dugouts were included in Phase 1, so those play elements are completed, depicted in the northwest corner there, northeast corner, excuse me, softball field area. The baseball dugouts were a little more complex due to the addition of a storage area on the back part of one of the dugouts to help Kim and the staff out with all the new things that they're dealing with there, need some storage. So those elements are incorporated in Phase 2. Other play-related elements associated with Phase 2, I would include the hard surfacing to the east of the field and around the backstops in that as well. That allows us to roll the bleachers in and out to facilitate transitions between sports and onto the field for soccer, football, off the field for baseball, softball, et cetera. We're also looking at repurposing an existing batting cage structure that was on the site as an interim measure just to the east of the field there. That area is eventually reserved for a future covered batting cage structure that would be outside funded, fundraised in all likelihood by some of the athletic programs. But for now, the idea would be that we would get an interim, basically repurpose the existing batting cage as an interim solution. Other play elements, bullpens and batting cage around the perimeter. There's a bullpen on the north edge of the field for softball. There's a bullpen and a batting cage on the south side of the field. Those elements, it's likely that they will not be incorporated in Phase 2. That's strictly from a budgetary standpoint. If we can afford them, wonderful. We will include them, but at this point, we're not counting on that. Other future improvements, and not in Phase 2, we just want to point them out because they're included on the graphic. Some additional hard surfacing between the grandstands and the football concessions building, and also just east of the concessions building as well. Those hard surface areas were largely to accommodate festival needs, but also provide benefits for football and other events at the facility. Also point out that the future dog park is still included just south of the field. The idea of a water accessible dog park still identified as a future improvement. Working our way to the east a little bit there, you'll see on the south side of the field, new pathway. That is a ADA accessible pathway down to the boat launch. In order to facilitate that at the grades we need them at, that does require us to reconstruct a portion of the existing pathway that's there, just to regrade it and provide the slopes that allow us to construct that without things like handrails and landings and that sort of thing. So new trail or redesigned trail, reconstructed trail from the parking lot, and then new ADA accessible down to the launch. Working our way down to the launch, you'll notice there's a new non-motorized launch. This is a grant-funded kayak launch, essentially, but will work for paddle boards and canoes just as well. Really unique design. Actually, someone in a wheelchair can launch a kayak there. It's got rollers for kayak to launch. You got bars to grab onto to pull yourself in. It's a really cool design. Associated with that, you'll notice that there's a log boom to separate the non-motorized and the motorized activities. Really something we're keying in on from a safety perspective. Kim is actually working on sourcing the logs for this as a donated effort. We'll probably have more on that in the future. Associated with the launch improvements overall, primarily new concrete and new asphalt for the ramps. When we're looking at designing and fitting this kayak launch, a non-motorized launch in there, it actually improved things to slightly realign and shift the existing launch. So we're actually rotated a little bit counterclockwise and shifted a little bit to the southeast from where it is now. You might not even notice it that much, but it's also an expanded concrete footprint. The idea is to deal with the prop wash from the boats that are motoring up onto the trailers. Also, ideally, if we can, it's a permitting issue we're dealing with right now, but we'd like to be able to get concrete beneath the float so that when the water's out, the floats will land on the concrete and not rack. We're working through with the Corps on that one. We may have to concede on that. We'll see how that goes. The floats themselves, the motorized floats, are not included in this phase. Those are a future phase. The piling to support them would be included in this phase. Since we're realigning things, we'll have to sink new piling. The associated log boom you see on the outside to catch milfoil and provide wave barrier, that's also viewed as a future phase, future effort. Also associated with the launch facility, happy to say there'll be a new restroom just basically between the baseball field and the boat launch. That restroom will be basically a kit. It's you just plumb it up. You buy the whole restroom facility as a kit and just drop it in place. Pretty neat solution used in a lot of park facilities. Working our way to the east in a new parking lot, obviously expanded from what's there now. The current parking lot has about 40 regular parking spaces. We're up to 81 with this design. Current parking lot also has, I believe, 19 boat trailer parking spaces. We're up to 24, and I'll point out that these 24 are far more functional than the 19 that are there currently. So this will be a huge benefit. Associated with the parking lot, of course, we've got shade trees, and we've also got vegetation, some trees and shrubs on the east edge. We're looking to be good neighbors and conscientious of headlights and issues and concerns that the neighbors have. We want to make sure we're plugging gaps, and if an existing tree needs to come out, we're putting something in its place, because the parking lot does expand just a hair to the east from where it is now. There'll also be lighting associated with the parking lot. This will be LED lighting, motion activated controls that allow dimming, and you can be on a timer or motion activation. These will be dark skies compliant. They'll be shielded to prevent the glare bomb from the neighbors down the waterfront as well. So again, considering their concerns and needs as well. One other thing I'd like to highlight is by the existing lift station, I'm sure everyone's familiar with in the middle of the parking lot, we're incorporating provisions for a future paid parking meter. So if there ever was a desire for whether for the boat launch or parking lot, we've got that provision there. We've got the conduit there. It's ready to be plumbed up essentially. So from a stormwater perspective, the parking lot water will be treated in conformance with city code. We've got stormwater swales within some of the islands and parking areas. Adjacent to the lift station is the primary stormwater treatment area. From that location, stormwater will be connected into our existing outfall that drains the field. As part of this effort, we're actually abandoning a current outfall that serves the existing parking lot and consolidating outfalls with a small outfall that comes from the lift station. There's a couple drains at the bottom of the lift station that's recessed, well below the parking lot. So we'll incorporate that, tie it all together, so all the water is going to a single point. Melissa, if you could jump to the other image. We also, one of the project goals was stormwater enhancement. So basically improving the water quality of the Boyer outfall, which is immediately east of the field. This outfall drains an amazingly large area. It's about 230 acres, all the way back to Super One on Boyer, drains to this location. So some pretty significant flows. So our goals are primary and secondary treatment at this outfall. As we dug into this a little bit, encounter some challenges. So first challenge being this 231 acres results in some staggering flows, as you could imagine. The second challenge is uncertainties with future permit requirements. So for anyone who's not familiar, once a community reaches 10,000 population, you fall under requirement to get an MS4 permit with EPA, which is being passed to the state of Idaho, but right now it's currently with EPA. That requires you to have your own stormwater management and permit for your community. What that has resulted in is uncertainties with what levels of treatment, what size storm you might need to treat for, those sorts of things. When we dug into this a little more, our consultants found 3 Idaho communities that recently went through this process. And all of them were basically held to the same standard in terms of storm event that they're treating for. So basically the flow that they have to treat. So with that, we're able to, with a good reasonable level of certainty, figure out we would likely be held to the same standard, right? So with that, when we look at this 231 acres and look at that level of that volume of water, it resulted in some pretty staggering end of pipe treatment costs if we were going to plug a widget at the end of the pipe with that flow, and also impractical from just a size perspective, an area. So with our consultants' assistance who thinking through this a little more, they came up with a brilliant idea, I believe, to rather than deal with the enormity of the size and complexity and cost of an end-of-pipe treatment system to treat that flow, what about reducing the flow? So what can we do upstream to mitigate that big storm event, basically detain the water temporarily during those events so that ultimately at the end, the flows that we're treating for are greatly reduced. So with that, and sorry, it's a long way to get there, but this image helps with that discussion. We identified what I know as Dubs Field. It's the T-ball field, but I guess is the 9th grade center park, Kim, is the correct terminology, as a spot to do this. Speaking with our civil design team, Welch Comer, and our landscape architects, Bernardo Wills, they've done this in other communities. I believe it's Idaho Falls actually has a standard to do this in a lot of their park systems, where basically you temporarily, during a storm event, you temporarily detain the water in a park facility. And then as the rain stops, essentially, it's that quick that you're draining it out. You're basically just detaining it for that event, so you don't get that big flash of water at the outfall. You hold it and detain it, and let it go as the rain stops. So this facility was identified as a city-owned property upstream that would allow us to capture a pretty significant amount of flows and greatly reduce them before they get to the outfall. That being said, this would be the first phase of a multi-phase effort. So we would create the detention system that allows us to detain that water, greatly reduce the flows at the outfall, then come back and create and construct a greatly reduced cost and footprint complexity treatment system at the outfall. So all the complexities of this process and the need to obtain additional survey at this field, the physically disparate locations of this solution from Memorial led us to basically putting this on a parallel path with the field project. So while we intend to move forward with the field project imminently, this one we're going to pause momentarily. We're going to be designing it over the course of this winter, bidding it out in the spring. I think the current plan was February and March bid time, and then we would construct it once T-ball's over, which is I believe the first or second week in June. We'd construct this. As for the overall field project itself, phase 2, the current plan is to advertise the week of September 21st, open bids the week of October 12th, which will allow us to come back to council on the 21st for award. The one nuance in the overall plan, I guess, is for the play elements, so the baseball dugouts and the hard surfacing would be have an earlier completion date. They just have an interim date within the overall contract, so that those would be done by February, so that baseball is ready to, and softball can take the field when spring sports starts. The other elements, the boat launch would obviously be subject to permit conditions, but ultimately Memorial Day is the target for the parking lot and the boat launch improvements. And I guess with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to add one thing, Dan, is on the retention pond idea, we can still have all the programming, the community garden and the T-ball coexist.
Yeah,
it won't be losing or sacrificing anything. It's actually quite genius.
Yeah, as Kim pointed out, and I hope I was able to state clearly, this is temporary. It's literally while it's raining, we detain the water, and as the raining stops, we're letting the water out. So it's and as a avid baseball fan, I've coached T-ball for, I don't know, both my kids through T-ball and moved up into baseball now, but the outfield edges, the edges of the outfield aren't used too much in T-ball. Typically all the play is on the infield for anybody who's been out there and been through that painful process. But yeah, so I don't see any impacts to sports. Also, when we experience the rains are typically a little earlier perhaps than the baseball season as well, so.
I'd also note that we had planned in conjunction, we were actually planning it this year, but then put it on delay for the construction for this project is in conjunction with the completion of the retention pond. We had a plan with Parks dollars to install with our park staff a sprinkler system at that site. So, which not only will improve the look and of that site, and we hear from people a lot because that's one of our entryways into town. It kind of sits as a gateway and it's dried out and become overgrown with weeds. So that will improve the look and feel of that site, but it will also improve the water system and quality for the community garden as well at the same time. So.
Great. Is that it?
Happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate that. Any questions from council? Okay. Well, thanks again, Dan. Was there anyone on staff that would like to comment on this issue? Anyone online, Melissa, that would like to comment on this issue?
If anyone would like to comment, please raise your hand. No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the preliminary design for phase 2 of War Memorial Field improvements and authorize staff to finalize the construction documents and advertise for project bids. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Councilman Grote?
Yes.
Councilman Espero,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule.
Yes.
Motion passes. The first item under new business is approval of a resolution to award city agreement number A20-3257-4, Cured in Place Pipe, or CIPP as it's called, Project 2020, to Planned and Engineered Construction Incorporated. This project will rehabilitate approximately 5,000 linear feet of sanitary sewer pipe utilizing CIPP. Bids were opened on September 3rd, 2020. This is a budgeted project with staff recommendation to accept bid Schedule B, bid alternative for $238,850. Does council have any questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this issue, clerk?
I'm not seeing anyone, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution to award city agreement number A20-3257-4, Cured in Place Pipe Project 2020 to Planned and Engineered Construction Incorporated. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilman Espero,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman Grote.
Yes.
Motion passes. The last item on the agenda this evening is a proposed resolution awarding city agreement number A20-1920-3, Information Technology Contract Support Services to Ex Babylon LLC. Pursuant to the requirements of Idaho Code 67-2806 and the City of Sandpoint Procurement Policy, the city advertised and requested proposals for information technology support services with a closing date of August 27, 2020. This is a budgeted expenditure encompassing a 3-year agreement with an option to renew for 2 one-year periods and not to exceed the price of $439,900 for the initial 3-year term. Does council have any questions? Okay, is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this issue, clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution to award agreement number A20-1920-3, Information Technology Contract Support Services to Ex Babylon LLC.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilman Espero,
Yes.
Councilwoman McAllister,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule.
Yes.
Motion passes and this meeting is adjourned.